expect fair skies Wednesday through Friday with temperatures in the 70s on Wednesday.
Welcome back. It's 10 minutes to the top of the hour, and every time 10 minutes to the top of the hour, we talk about our tropical systems. Let's take a look so far at the hurricane season for the year 2003, the systems that have impacted the U.S. Well, we've actually had 4 tropical storms and a hurricane, Claudette, back in July 15th. Now, we haven't had this one impact the U.S., but the question is, who will it impact? This is our latest hurricane, and it is Isabel, as it's moving to the west-northwest at 13 miles per hour. It does have a very well-defined eye with this, and it is a very powerful system already. And you can see it's located so far away from land, yet still a lot of warm water and a very rich environment for some more development is possible over the next 24 hours. In fact, how far is it? Well, it's about 1,100 miles east of the Leeward Islands. These are the Leeward Islands. This is our system. So you can see there's quite a bit of space in between these. It has winds up to 135 miles per hour. Let's take a look at what we can expect out of this hurricane. Hurricane Isabel. Well, let's see if we can get this to stop jerking. Here we go. We have our area of high pressure sitting here across the Atlantic Basin, and the winds circulate clockwise around this high pressure system. This is Fabian, or rather I should say Isabel, getting caught underneath this flow, these easterly winds. And it looks like here are the islands. We could start to feel the impact as early as the weekend. So this is certainly something to be of concern for many of you. And then as it continues to track possibly towards the west, could even impact the southeast areas of the Bahamas, the Turks, the Caicos. Certainly something to monitor closely, especially if you live in this vicinity. And in the long term, let me stress this, the long term, look at this flow. So anywhere from Florida to New York, you too may want to monitor this. The projected path still takes it through the open waters through the work week. Not until the weekend, it looks like we could be dealing with this, making some sort of impact here across the islands. A little further eastward from our hurricane is our latest development. This is Tropical Depression 14, just about 260 miles south of the Cape Verde Islands. So it's certainly no threat to anyone here in the next 24 hours. It is a tropical depression. It's number 14. The question is, will it be upgraded to Tropical Storm 1? There's a very good possibility of this as well. And the last system, well, Henri. You remember Henri over the weekend? Well, it's finally stretching out. It has a lot of shear with it. We could be dealing still with some higher surf right around, say, the Outer Banks. Look for the surf to possibly be up over the next 24 hours, maybe 10 to 15 feet. And we may also be dealing with some light rain, but luckily no flooding here. Dave?
Do you realize that we won't hit the midpoint of hurricane season, the activity, September 12th?
Still a ways
Friday.
to go.
And we've had 14 tropical depressions.
And 2 major hurricanes.
Active tropical season. What about the weather around here?
A bit active as well. We'll give you all the details coming up after your local on the 8th.
You could save up to 70% on term life insurance. Watch.
Everyone wants security for their family. So I started thinking, do I have enough insurance? Could I afford more? So I called Zurich Direct. It was easy. In minutes, I had a free quote for a policy I could afford.
My job is to help people get the insurance they need. I listen and ask a few questions, so you get a quote that's just right.
We're Zurich Direct, part of Zurich Financial Services Group, over $206 billion strong. And through Zurich Direct, you can save up to 70% on term life insurance. Call now for a free quote.
We couldn't figure out how much protection we needed.
Dave at Zurich Direct asked the right questions. He didn't pressure us.
And I got a $300,000 policy for just $26 a month.
I help families like to share it and save money every day. And I can help them pick just the right amount of protection they need.
Call Zurich Direct now for your free quote. It's easy. There's no obligation. Just savings up to 70% on the right policy for you. Call now, 1-888-558-TERM.
Hey! Recognize my friends here? You might know some of their work. When it comes to protection, these guys are no dummies.
Fair skies on Thursday and Friday. And on Saturday, expect mostly cloudy skies.
We have the second major hurricane now of the Atlantic 2003 season. I'm Nick Walker, and this is your tropical update. This is Isabel right here, making its way toward the west. We'll show you a closer view in just a moment. Review you what's been going on with Hurricane Fabian moving well toward the north, becoming extratropical, and becoming extratropical is what was Tropical Depression Henri. Still, though, could bring some wind and some waves and some showers to the Carolina shores over the next few days. Here's Henri, just about off the picture now, the coast of Africa back here, and right behind Isabel is our newest tropical depression. We'll show you the statistics on both of these now, starting with Hurricane Isabel, located nowhere near any land right now, well to the east of the Leeward Islands by about 1,300 miles. But the Leeward Islands, as well as the Bahamas, the southern United States, and even northward on up toward New York State, need to be monitoring this, as it could go, well, in any of those directions. If it stays on its current path, though, it could affect the northern Leeward Islands with at least some waves and some showers by the time we get into the weekend, but we think right now it may stay more toward the north. However, that's still a good ways out. Our Tropical Depression 14 right behind it, 240 miles south of the Cape Verde Islands, winds in the center of 30 miles an hour, moving toward the west at 5 miles an hour, not threatening any land areas at the moment. The Caribbean's clear, the Gulf of Mexico clear as well, as is the Eastern Pacific, but we are watching a powerful typhoon making its way toward Okinawa, Japan, located about 245 miles just to the south-southeast of it, and moving toward the northwest with 132 mile-per-hour winds. Kim?
And joining us now is Alexandra Steele from Your Weather Today. Good morning, Alexandra. How are you?
Good, Kim. How are you this morning?
I'm doing fine, thank you. You know, compared to earlier this summer, stormy weather is definitely slowing down.
You know, and Dr. John Neese will look at the reasons for the storm slowdown. Also, stick around because Dennis Smith pinpoints the places where fog could slow your ride to work and school for many of you, including New York and Philadelphia and Chicago. Now, Kim shows us why some things are happening, and recent weather will affect some clothing prices. Good morning, Kim, again.
All right, Alexandra, thank you, hon. First, dry weather, then too much rain are taking their toll on a major source of fabric. The Bloomberg Money Barometer looks at a dwindling harvest estimate.
Good morning. U.S. farmers will harvest less cotton than the government estimated last month. Analysts say dry weather dimmed prospects in Texas, the biggest growing state. Now, according to a Bloomberg News survey, the government will forecast a crop of 16.9 million bales. That's 1.2% less than the 17.1 million bales estimated by the Department of Agriculture a month ago. On August 12th, the USDA said Texas was forecast to produce nearly 4.5 million bales, down 13% from a year ago because of high winds, hail damage, as well as hot and dry weather. But that estimate may fall even further after rainfall was 85% below normal in fields around Lubbock, the biggest growing area in the state. Now keep in mind, farmers have already reduced the amount of cotton planted this past spring after rainy weather left many southern fields too soggy for seeding. For the Weather Channel, I'm Linda Bell with the Bloomberg Money Barometer.
Let's head into the weekend now, and your forecast calls for a few thunderstorms making their way through the Midwest. If you're headed to the Osaka Garden Festival in Chicago, take an umbrella near the lakeshore. Should be better, though, off toward the northeast and back toward the west. Lots of sunshine in the west on Sunday and the Central Plains. You will see a few isolated thunderstorms moving, though, into places like Pittsburgh, southward to Atlanta and Miami.
With some good weather in the northeast, not expecting any problems at the airports, Dennis.
They deserve it, too. They had to cope with a cool, wet summer, so let's have some nice fall weather. Good travel out of New York, Philadelphia, and even Washington, D.C. We'll give it a 2 thumbs up kind of day. Looking good.
All right, everyone. Have a nice day. And, well, First Outlook will continue tomorrow from 5 to 7 a.m.
Stay with us, though, as we leave you with a shot of New York. Your weather today is ahead.
In the future, everyone's glasses will automatically adjust to changing light and block out harmful UV rays that can damage the eyes. But for those with transitions lenses, the future is already here. Ask your eye care professional, because the danger is real now, and so is the protection. Transitions.
Thanks for joining us here on the Weather Channel. I'm Janetta Jones. It's 10 minutes before the top of the hour, and that means it's time for your tropical update. So as we get started, I want to show you what's going on in the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and the Atlantic. Biggest story here happens to be with Isabel. That's our hurricane that is actually a very powerful hurricane. It's a Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, so almost the strongest you can get, but not quite. And in fact, we have strengthening in the forecast. As it's still a couple of days away from the islands, it may impact the islands. So we will have to keep a very close watch on that in the next several days. Here's Bermuda and Cuba and Florida and the Gulf of Mexico, and basically all is relatively quiet in all of those locations, thankfully. Fabian is extratropical, not a problem anymore. Same story with Henri, the system we were dealing with over the weekend. Henri that moved across Florida and then kind of sat here just off of the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina, not presenting a problem at this point. So let's talk about Hurricane Isabel, now centered about 980 miles east of the Leeward Islands, So we think that it's still a couple of days away, but certainly something we've got to watch very closely because it's 135-mile-per-hour winds at this point and expected to strengthen. Its movement is west-northwest at 14 miles per hour. So as you can see, it may in fact impact the islands, and in fact it may start a little bit of a curve more to the west. So that's what we're concerned about, as you may imagine. All right, let's take a closer look at the satellite vantage point. And you can see the eye of the hurricane right in here, still about a couple of days away from the Leeward Islands, but certainly bears watching. As we look at this particular hurricane, it looks very strong, very well organized, and the eye wall clearly defined at this point. It's Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, winds at 135 miles per hour, and the exact track, well, I'm going to show you the path, but take a look at that eye. On that visible satellite, it really shows up. Now, this is the path, and like I said, we think it's going to continue its track west-northwest, and then it may make a more westerly track. That remains to be seen, but here is the time frame that we're thinking about. Over the next several days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, into Saturday and Sunday, it may be impacting the northern fringes of the islands. So like I said, we're going to have to keep a very, very close watch on what's happening here. We also have another tropical depression. It's just to the south of the Cape Verde Islands. In case you don't know where that is, it's just off of the coast of Africa. This is Africa, so it's way out there in the Atlantic. But I want to give you the latest on it. It's centered about 105 miles south of the Cape Verde Islands. The winds are fairly weak at 35 miles per hour, and its movement is north-northwest at 10 miles per hour. Now, it is expected to strengthen perhaps to tropical storm status, but if it does, we still are not that concerned. We don't think it's going to affect land at this point. If it continues that track, it will move out into the central Atlantic and not take a more westerly track as Isabel is doing at this point. So just want to let you know that it's out there. The Caribbean, very, very quiet right now. Cozumel looking good, Belize, the Bay of Campeche, no problems here. Gulf of Mexico, we do have a flare-up of convection showers and thunder showers, but not expecting development there. And this is the remnants of what we were watching over the weekend. Henri was a tropical depression yesterday. Now it's not even a tropical depression anymore. And over the past few hours, this is what it's been looking like in the islands as we're anticipating Hurricane Isabel to move closer and closer. Right now, hey, things are looking pretty good, and even the radar looking nice at St. Thomas and St. Croix. In the Pacific, well, all is pretty quiet in the eastern Pacific, however, not so in the western Pacific. This is a super typhoon, and it is moving closer and closer to Okinawa. We expect it to affect Okinawa very, very soon, probably in the next 24 hours. And with the winds over 150 miles per hour, that is going to be devastating. Eventually, it could head up into the Sea of Japan and may be impacting Japan in the next several days. So just want to give you a heads up there. Here's what's happening with the current situation. High pressure and control along the eastern seaboard. A front moving out of the Rockies into the plains could trigger showers and thunderstorms, and some of those may be intense. We'll keep an eye on that for you and have the details coming up.
Oh, everything looks wonderful. Oh, I didn't forget about you, sweetie.
Hey, great party.
George, how are you?
Good. Hi.
Hello.
Michael.
expect fair skies on Thursday and Friday, and on Saturday, expect a chance of rain.
It's 10 minutes before the hour and time for your tropical update. I'm meteorologist Carl Parker. While it's still well out into the open waters of the Atlantic, Hurricane Isabel is our primary concern in the tropics tonight. And as we look at the entire Atlantic basin, it really jumps out right in the center of your screen. That is Hurricane Isabel. It is moving towards the west-northwest as it has been for the last few days at about 13 miles an hour. The wind's now 135 miles an hour. That is a Category 4 hurricane. That's out of 5 categories on the Saffir-Simpson scale. So that's a very, very strong hurricane. The pressure now 948 millibars. There might be some fluctuations in the intensity in the next few days here, but it should continue to be a major hurricane, and it certainly does bear watching. There again is the Atlantic basin. We've got the Lesser Antilles right in there, the Caribbean, of course, off to the west. Here's Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Cuba, the Bahamas, and Florida. And we think the storm will continue generally off towards the west, and that could bring it north of the Lesser Antilles by the time the weekend rolls around. And after that, it's really too early to say. All we can tell you is that you really do need to watch it if you live along the U.S. coast, especially the southeast coast here, down into Florida. Keep a very close eye on the system in the next week or so, and we certainly will too. There's a closer look at your hurricane. This is a very well-formed hurricane. It's not quite as well-formed as it was yesterday. There's more cloud within the eye today. It's a little more concealed. Still a large area of convection, central dense overcast here. These thunderstorms rotating around each other, and you can see the outflow off to the north and off to the south. That means the storm is being ventilated. It's in a good environment, and we do think that it will maintain its strength in a general sense. While it could weaken somewhat, for the most part, it should continue to be a very strong hurricane. So it will work along towards the west in the next few days here. That could bring it to the north of the Lesser Antilles. Now, if it's, say, 100 miles or more away from the northernmost Lesser Antilles here, that's not going to mean much more than some breezy conditions, but there will be some very high waves on the order of, say, 15 to 20 feet. But the left side of the track does bring it fairly close to the island, so we certainly can't rule this out, and you need to watch it very closely if you live in the islands, and we will too. Again, it's a little more uncertain out to this point. This is what we have a fair amount of confidence in, this track right here. And we do think it will take more of a turn towards the west as opposed to the west-northwest, but it really hasn't done that yet. A ridge should build in off to the north here and turn it along towards the west in the next few days. Now, beyond that, there's a new tropical depression. That's number 14 right in there. Very diffuse, kind of hard to pick out. The wind's 35 miles an hour. It's moving towards the north-northwest at about 13 miles an hour. As we look at the Caribbean, not a whole lot going on tonight. It's fairly quiet. A beautiful night around Jamaica and in the Lesser Antilles and over towards Belize City. Great night also through a lot of the Gulf, although there is some squally weather here in the northern part of the Gulf, south of Louisiana. We're not too concerned about tropical development right there. And then through the eastern Pacific, south of Mexico, just some thunderstorms, but nothing organized at this time. And finally, we take you into the western Pacific, and this is a super typhoon. The wind's 150 miles an hour. That's working along towards the northwest. Will eventually work into the East China Sea and then move up perhaps between Korea and Japan, at which time we think it will weaken. It's something that does bear watching for folks who live in Southeast Asia.
Well, there's much more to come on the second hour of Weather Center.
We'll be back after your local on the 8s. Please stay tuned.
During Red Lobster's Dozens of Shrimp, pair 2 dozen shrimp for just $9.99. Choose from classic favorites and fresh new tastes like our new grilled baby rack of shrimp. Share the shrimp you love with the people you love. 2 dozen shrimp now at Red Lobster.
Share the love!
Stop in today for our Dozens of Shrimp event. Red Lobster, share the love.